In this video, I'm going to explain what the Asian squat is. I'm going to explain why it's called the Asian squat and why it has so many other names as well. I'm going to share the truly fake history of this deep Asian squat position. And I'm going to explain 3 reasons why you don't Asian squat regularly. And at the end of the video, I'm going to explain what to expect if you do try to Asian squat, even if you're not Asian. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. A textbook example of the Asian squat is when you are sitting like this. Your feet are flat on the floor with the heels down, knees are bent into a tight angle, hips are also bent or called flexed into this tight angle, and you're just sitting here relaxing. You should be able to hold this position while having a conversation, having a cup of tea, or foot placement in the Asian squat can vary. You may have your feet in about shoulder width in a nice medium position. You might have your feet much wider while you hang out like this. Or you may have your feet narrow together so you can hug your knees and rock back and forth and gently tell yourself nice friendly things so the fears and the voices go away. The Asian squat goes by many different names. You may hear it referred to as the Russian squat or the Slav squat or the Gopnik squat, Primal squat, deep squat, ATG squat, the resting squat, or the kimchi squat if you're Korean. Whatever name you choose to use to refer to this squat is not that important. Ultimately, humans are able to do this squat. Now, you may be wondering, why are there so many different names for this squat? Where did all these names come from? Is it really an Asian squat? To answer that question, I want to take a little bit of time to share the truly fake history of the Asian squat and how it came to dominate everything but the Western world. Quick break to say a big thanks to Tammy for the $10 donation and to Riley for the $5 donation to support this channel. If you want to support me too, then use that thanks button down below or the PayPal link in the description box. Super appreciate it. Now let's get back to it. In the 13th century, Genghis Khan and his marauding hordes spread the Mongolian Empire from the oceans in the east to the Caspian Sea in the west. As the Mongol hordes pillaged and captured cities, they spread their own culture and technology throughout the world. Trading merchants from Europe, Africa, and India all encountered this new Mongolian culture and technology and realized that what the Mongols had to share was not just violence, but also a new way to poop. Prior to the introduction of Genghis Khan's Mongol squat, human beings around the world had not yet found a good way to poop. European tribes at the time were still using partner-based manual feces removal techniques on a daily or sometimes weekly basis to get poo out of the human body. Societies in Africa had developed rich cultural dance traditions that would help jar feces loose in the middle of the dance. In Southeast Asia, intense spices and sometimes rotten food were added to meals to encourage diarrhea, which would allow a human to poo while standing, walking, or even running. Meanwhile, tribes in the Americas developed complex shamanistic rituals to help get rid of the food that was in their bodies. That's where rituals like the ayahuasca ceremony come from. But the introduction of Genghis Khan's Mongol squat made it possible for human beings all over the world to poop in a stationary position without having to ingest anything painful that resulted in diarrhea and without having to make sacrificial offerings to any gods. When Genghis Khan and the Mongol army eventually collapsed, the Mongol squat was no longer referred to as the Mongol squat. It started being called the Asian squat, or the Primal squat, or the Russian squat, depending on where you were. In many European countries, this deep squat position was gradually abandoned and toilets were used in favor of the Asian squat position. However, throughout the rest of the world, human beings started using this position to poop and also to deliver babies. This position allows a lot of stuff to come down through the bottom of your pelvis. So if you're trying to pass a human through another human, it's best to open up the bottom of the pelvis and let gravity do some of the work. Over the centuries, of course, in a drive to become more modern and technologically advanced, European doctors have pushed the idea that women should actually just be lying on their backs while trying to move a giant object through their pelvis. That concludes my truly fake history of the Asian squat, but if you'd like to share your own version of the truly fake history of the Asian squat, drop it in the comment section down below. Now let's talk about the 3 C's, or the 3 reasons why you don't Asian squat. The first C is culture. We live in a culture that generally tries to distance itself from anything that looks primitive. Western culture has constantly tried to find new technology, gadgets, and gizmos to remove any sort of discomfort or work in our lives. So going into a position like this, which looks like you're trying to poo or pass a baby, just isn't looked at as a good thing or as a modern thing. Instead, we encourage the use of chairs and seats and benches at all times. That includes pooping. While human beings are really well designed to poop in this position, in the Western world with modern Western toilets, we actually completely remove the need to go into a deep squat position in our daily lives. The second C is clothing. Clothing, of course, is a subset of culture, but it's very important to point out as its own special thing, because you can still choose different clothing that still matches the culture without crippling your hip and leg mobility. If you have pants that are too tight, you will actually be unable to get into a deep squat position without your pants pulling on your body and forcing you to fall down. So if you wear something like super tight skinny jeans or really stiff material in your pants, you won't be able to Asian squat, and that's going to be a big reason why you don't Asian squat. The third C is comfort. For many people in the Western world, going into a deep Asian squat is just not common once you're out of preschool. Because of the lack of repetition and practice of this position, for many people in the Western world, this becomes a really uncomfortable position. You lack the leg strength to do this, you lack the hip mobility to do this. Your knees might feel way too fragile and painful to do this, your ankles may be too stiff to allow you into the position, and your hips, oh lordy, do they complain. The lack of strength and mobility in your lower body is also likely to make your back really sore because you can't quite figure out how to compensate properly with anything else, and then your back muscles go crazy. So now the big question is, what will happen if you try to Asian squat? If you try to do the Asian squat, you're going to find one of 2 things. You're going to find you can do it, whether that's because you've been practicing it or you are in a sport or activity that helps you do it, or because you did a lot when you were a kid and you've just lucked out and maintained that mobility. The other option is that you may discover that you cannot do the Asian squat because you have not been practicing doing the Asian squat. If that's the case, you're going to find that muscles all over your ankles, knees, hips, and spine and core are weak and uncoordinated. You're going to experience discomfort, and you're going to feel like this is just not a position that your body is designed for. You'll probably waste some time telling yourself that you are so genetically deformed or in some way diseased that you are not meant to do the Asian squat. In short, you're going to come up with a ton of reasons to convince yourself that you are so deformed and different from the other billions of people who have ever lived on planet Earth that you alone cannot Asian squat. But if you can f that noise, you may discover that you actually can Asian squat like the other billions of people who have lived throughout human history before the advent of the toilet. If you do want to learn how to Asian squat, check out the links in the description box, and I'll also link to some videos that'll help you learn how to Asian squat. And if you want to free yourself from stiffness and weakness, go to my website to check out the programs that'll help you get a pain-free body. If you found this video helpful, hit that thanks button or use the PayPal link down in the description box to leave me a tip. I really appreciate it, and I promise I will not use your money to pay somebody to help me remove feces from my bowels. Nasty! If you don't want to leave me any money, that's totally fine. Just hit the thanks button, share this video with someone you know who needs to learn the truly fake history of the deep Asian squat. And always, please remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks. Life shouldn't.